One thing you'll find today is that young people need a really healthy sense of self. You almost have this sort of polarity between young people almost caught up in self-hatred or insecurity, and then another bunch who are almost overconfident. So young people need people who come in and give them an accurate sense of self. One of the interesting things about the world that young people inhabit today is that it's this glittery, shining world full of consumer promises, but beneath that, there's not much. One expert's called this empty happiness, and that's the world which young people are inhabiting in Australia. Sadly, for so many young people, there's so much emphasis put on their bodies and making their bodies look right. This is especially true for young women. And what happens is that when young people don't get what they want, they start to turn on their bodies. They start to self-harm and they start to affect the packaging. And sadly, this is a trend we've seen rise, particularly amongst young people in Australia, is the whole issue of self-harming. Young people today live in this whole MySpace or sort of Facebook world where some of them on their personal websites will have almost 1,000 friends. But interestingly, heaps of them still talk about loneliness. Often they'll still be at home on a Saturday night when a problem comes in their life. They've got no one to talk to. So we live in this age of tremendous relational breadth, but very little relational depth. So when the troubling times come, young people need people who they can actually share their deepest struggles and issues with. One of the weird things is that young people today live in this almost hyper-sexualized culture where they're told that to have social meaning, they've got to express themselves sexually. And sadly what this means is that many young people are basically having to grow up or become adults very young in their life. And this results in a whole sort of world where young people, to find social meaning, start to practice sexual practices way too early. And again too, this is why we need mentors to model to young people just actually how to be an adult. And that there's actually a process of childhood that sadly many are missing out on. There's a huge emphasis on hedonism, on pleasure through, finding meaning through pleasure. So it's no wonder that young people find themselves abusing all kinds of drugs, from whether it be alcohol abuse all the way up to extreme drugs like ice. They're told that if they're going to have a life of meaning, they have to be constantly in a state of pleasure.